Yo guys, what's going on? It's the Tominator, and this is an Olympia review I've been meaning to get around to for a while now. It's just that there isn't a ton of great footage still available. In fact, there's nothing out there video-wise that we can really even use. Sure, there's one vid up on YouTube from the top 6 comparison in the finals, but infuriatingly, they only show 3 guys at a time, and since Jay and Phil were standing in the middle, that means we almost never get to see them directly compared. So I just said screw it and went with photos. Most of these were taken from the Muscular Development website, which is one of the few major outlets that still has older contest galleries available. Muscle Time seems to be gone for good, and bodybuilding.com purged their site years ago, which I've got to say is pathetic for a company of their size and caliber. I mean, storage is dirt cheap these days, man. If you're running out of server space, go pick up an external hard drive for like $50. Okay, but I digress. I just don't want to hear bitching in the comments about how, oh, why didn't you use video? It's so much better than pictures. No, it's not. Not in this case, guys. So, on to the matchup at hand. This was the 2010 Mr. Olympia, the final year Jay Cutler would lay claim to the Sandow, and the first time Phil Heath would seriously challenge for the title. It was an awesome head-to-head battle because here you had an older, time-tested veteran in Jay, coming off the heels of his epic comeback in 2009, fighting off this hungry, up-and-coming, and much improved Phil Heath. It was sort of like the master versus the apprentice scenario, especially if you know a little about the history between these two. And it made for a compelling storyline and a great contest. In the front relaxed, you gotta give this one to Jay. He's just so much wider, and those shredded quads seal the deal for him downstairs. I don't think there can really be a debate here. Okay, and I should mention that even though we're going to be seeing other guys like Branch and Dexter in the lineup, I'm gonna focus my commentary exclusively on Jay versus Phil, because this was really a two-horse race. The side relaxed is much closer. Here you can make a case for Phil for his thicker pecs and better arms and shoulders. Jay still has a little more detail on the outer thigh though, and he's keeping his midsection a bit tighter it looks like, but Phil's quads really flare out impressively to the front. I'm tempted to go with Phil here. Let's check it out from the other side. This one was taken from the finals, you can tell by the more colorful background. And here, Phil looks a lot better in my opinion. He's showing way more taper by twisting more now, and his legs look thicker from the side than Jay's. The only area I would really give to Jay over him here is the abs, so Phil takes the side relaxed. Turning around, this one's close too. Based on this look, I'm tempted to go with Phil again for his extra detail through the back, plus he looks tighter through the glutes. Jay still got the width going for him though, and he's not that far off conditioning-wise. His hamstrings compare very favorably to Phil's. But here's a screenshot someone took of the live stream where Jay looks markedly better than he just did in that last pic. Here you can see the edge he has in terms of muscle maturity, and he looks much more competitive now from a conditioning standpoint as well. I think all his extra mass puts him over the top. So that's 2-2 in the quarter turns. Really it should be 2-1 for Jay because the side relaxed should only count for 1. I'm not sure how they score it exactly since they never deigned to inform us, but at best, Phil is tied with the champ at this point. Moving on to the mandatories, let's check out this front double biceps. Now keep in mind, Phil looks like he's a little closer to the camera because he's not that much taller than Branch. He should be roughly the same height as Jay, if not a little shorter because of Jay's spiky hairdo, but he looks taller. Anyway, I like Phil in this shot this year. I give him the edge in the arms, and I think his chest looks better here, but the rest of the torso and lower body goes to Jay. Cutler's legs from the front are damn near unbeatable. Even if they're not the largest in terms of sweep or thickness from side to side, he makes up for it big time with all that deep separation. Jay's waist may be wide, but he wisely keeps it sunken, and along with those flaring lats and huge rib cage, this makes his upper body look pretty impressive. His biceps are actually very competitive with Phil's here, although of course Phil takes the forearms and triceps. Overall, I'm leaning towards Cutler because Phil just isn't quite as sharp through the legs and midsection this year. Although it is really close and I can see arguments for both sides. Here's a second look from the finals, and now I give Phil the edge through the upper body, but the legs again just aren't on Jay's level. Does that mean I'm giving Jay the front double strictly because his legs are better? Nah, guys, don't get it twisted. What I'm saying is that Jay's upper body is closer to Phil's upper body than Phil's legs are to Jay's legs. Get it? Alright then, let's move on. The front lat spread is basically automatic for Jay. Phil looks characteristically round and even aesthetic, but he's simply too narrow upstairs to properly fill this one out. Especially this year. He'd continued to make minor improvements in it so that by, say, 2013, this was actually a pretty solid pose for him. But back in 2010, not so much. It's too arm dominant and the pecs look squished and rounded. Jay's proportions and taper look much better here. The lats aren't being overshadowed by the arms and shoulders, and when we go downstairs, his quads look phenomenal as ever. If you're still not convinced, keep in mind once again that Phil is cheating the line. He definitely doesn't have the size advantage over Jay. Carrying on into the side chest, this one is super close. Again, Jay has that width factor through the chest and has more detail on the outer quads, but Phil is fuller pretty much everywhere. Pecs, shoulders, arms, you name it. Plus he's got better hamstrings and glutes. Here's a second look where it appears that Jay might actually be the one out-angling him for a change. And yeah, I gotta go with Heath here, guys. His legs look much bigger from the side, his pecs are a little more striated, and he's beating Jay thoroughly through the arms. Look at that far tricep on Phil compared to Jay's. Look at his forearms. Jay looks really good too, don't get me wrong, and I realize it's a side chest and not a side arms or side leg, but when everything else is this close, clear advantages in these other areas add up and can really make a difference. The gift takes this one. Turning to the rear, it's tough to beat Phil in the back double biceps. We all know that, even at this early stage of his career. But I gotta give Jay credit, he's holding his own. This is actually a lot closer than you might expect, because while Phil definitely has the better lower lats and more striated glutes, and of course destroys everyone when we're talking about the forearms, Jay's still way wider and more massive. His shoulders, bis and tris, upper back, hamstrings, and calves are all right on par, if not better, than Heath's. The problem with Jay is that his lower back lets him down. His lats insert fairly high up, and there's just not much going on down there in the lower half of his back. His glutes also aren't as sharp. Here's a second look from the finals, and yeah, I gotta go with Phil here. He's just more polished from top to bottom and doesn't have any real weak points. But I could honestly see this one going either way. It's not a knockout blow for Phil like it would become for him in later years. The rear lat spread is another shot you might expect Phil to win, but at this point he's simply too narrow, especially standing next to someone like Jay. Here's a better look. I like Phil's detail and he's still beating Jay in the lower lats, but Jay's not that far off and he's just so much bigger and wider. His weak lower back doesn't hurt him as much in this pose either, so I gotta give him the edge. Here's another screenshot from the webcast, and maybe it's just the darker lighting, but Jay looks even better now conditioning-wise next to Phil. Phil's still a tad sharper, but Jay's just bullying him with all that extra mass. So they split the back poses one apiece. Side triceps is an excellent shot for both of them. I've always admired Jay's execution on this, and Phil, well, what can you say? Arguably the best triceps of all time right there. So it goes without saying that a young Phil Heath, sans bubblegut, is going to do some serious damage in this one. Overall, I gotta give the nod to the challenger here. It's close enough everywhere else that Phil's superior triceps clinched the win for him. As great as Jay looks in his own right, my eyes keep going back to Phil here. He's just got so much wow factor. The ab and thighs, another interesting one. Kinda apples and oranges. On the one hand, I prefer Phil's shape and aesthetic appeal with the smaller waistline. There's no denying Jay's much blockier through the midsection. But he also happens to have the better set of abs and quads. So considering these are the namesake of the pose, I think we gotta give it to him. It might not be pretty, but Jay's physique gets the job done. This is probably a better shot for him where he's really flexing the leading thigh, and you can see all that immaculate feathering and the super deep cuts. Neither one of them has a great taper here, though, it has to be said. You'd think someone as wide upstairs as Cutler would have that, but oh well, what can you do? He still beats Phil, in my opinion. Alright, and finally, we come to the most muscular. In the crab, it's Phil, hands down. He looks much rounder and fuller through the shoulders, arms, and pecs, and even his legs look bigger here because they're wider. His chest is also crazy striated, and his midsection isn't spilling over, ruining his flow like how it would in later years. About the only things you can give to Jay are that he's got a broader chest, and his upper traps are a bit more pronounced. Yeah, the quads still show deeper separation, but it's not as important now since it's not the focal point of the pose, and they kind of get hidden in shadow anyway the way they're bending over like that. Now, here's an unusual sight: Phil with the hand on hip and Jay in the hands clasped. I've almost never seen Cutler do this one, but honestly, it's not bad. He could use a little more tricep sweep and maybe a better set of brachioradialis, but overall, it's respectable. The lower body looks insanely good. I might even give him the nod here over Heath, even though they're hitting different poses, so it's tough to compare. But Phil's hand on hip isn't as impressive as his crab. Still, he cleaned up so much there in the crab, I'd easily award him the most muscular pose overall. So at the end of the day, what's the final verdict when we tally up the results? In terms of the compulsories, Jay won 4 out of 8, the front double, front lat spread, back lat spread, and ab and thigh. Phil won the other 4, the side chest, back double, side triceps, and most muscular. It was extremely close though, and virtually every pose could have gone either way, especially the front and back double, where I myself remained somewhat undecided. As for the symmetry round, I gave Jay the front and rear relaxed, while Phil took the side relaxed. Technically, that's a 2-2 split there as well, although, as I was saying, I don't think the side relaxed shots should be weighted the same, since whoever wins from one side is going to win the other side at least 90% of the time. It's basically the same pose after all. That'd be like making them do the side chest from both sides and then scoring it twice. Makes no sense, guys. So, considering they were essentially tied in my book, but Jay was the defending Mr. Olympia, I do believe he rightfully retained the title this year. It was a strong push by Phil, and you could tell he was destined for greatness, but he hadn't quite arrived just yet. And the fact of the matter is that he didn't do enough to decisively knock out the champ. That's my breakdown of the top 2 at the 2010 Olympia. What do you guys think? Did Jay deserve it, or should Phil have started his run a year earlier? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, but thank you for watching, and don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more. Until next time, this has been the Tominator, signing off, and I'll be back.